PJNet.TV Part 2, the second half. It's 9:30, almost, on the East Coast. And we are ready to launch with Del Didway and his special guest standing by in our green room. We are recording. We are streaming on all platforms. Background is ready. Let's switch to Studio 6 in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, welcome back to PJNet.TV. A special welcome to those of you in the PJNet chat room, which it is unlikely that you will hear this because it's not there yet. But if you are watching this on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, if you are on Twitter, and you are seeing this live, we are very grateful that you've taken some of your time to join in with us tonight, and you will not be disappointed. Now, I will ask you or invite you, all the people are over in the PJNet.TV chat room, where you can watch it there as well and enjoy the fellowship. There's quite a crowd over there right now. Folks, every Tuesday night about this time, Del Didway is our guest, and Del blogs at deldidway.com. But before we get into his blog and his thoughts on life in general, he has some thoughts from his executive producer who many times joins us, and her name is Sophie. Sophie, you get to hang out with Grandpa? You do? Hey, did I see where you had made some cookies or something? Mm-hmm. Were they good?
Yeah. What else did you make?
Easter eggs.
No, what else did you make? You made some cinnamon rolls yesterday.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Forgot about those.
So you're getting it now. Is Grandma helping you with that? No? Okay. Now, Grandpa, he helps with, when it comes to mealtime, he helps with marshmallows, s'mores, hot dogs, things like that, right?
Yeah.
Hey, did I hear, Sophie, that you're out riding your bike now?
Yeah, and I started yesterday riding with no training wheels.
Oh man, do we have? Oh, I can't. And how old are you?
6.
6. Now, Sophie, was that just maybe a little bit scary?
What, baby?
You know. Now, what? Now, how'd they do it? Sometimes they'll take off one training wheel and leave the other one on. Did we do that, or did we just took them both off?
Took them both off.
Was that? Let me ask something. Was that your idea, or was that maybe Grandpa's idea?
That was mine idea.
Oh, come on! Really? Did you wobble?
No.
No, just
you
took
get the
off.
hang of it. Yeah,
getting
the hang of it.
Well, Sophie, I'm proud of you. That is super. I tell you, I think it's eating those Doritos that gives you the strength and the confidence and the smelly breath to to do that kind of thing. Sophie, we are so proud of you. I hope that you are able. Now, I want you to do this. I want you to have fun, but I want you to stop. Anytime you come to a corner, you got to stop and you got to look every way, because sometimes people are turning, and you got to be real careful. It's a lot of fun, but you got to be careful too. Okay, promise.
Yeah.
We don't want you to hurt any cars.
If I'm eating those Doritos, I got a big bicep.
You do? Can you show us your bicep? I'll show you mine if you'll show me yours. Do you know Coach does 64 push-ups every morning? Does Grandpa do that too?
No. Well, what are you going to make me tomorrow?
I don't know.
Something good, right? All right.
Make you aggravated.
Bye.
Good night, Sophie. Thanks for coming in.
Go run the other way. She's going to skedaddle.
Who is that girl?
Yeah. All right, here we go. All right, good.
All right, so we got the Doritos out of the way. We got the biceps out of the way. And Del, I was thrilled to see your blog today. It took me back to when we first started, and it's football season. You had just done dugout devotions, and you were getting ready for first down devotions. But it sounds like even though we're not exactly in football season, you got to start writing now for the sequel to First Down Devotions, right?
Yeah, I have to have that into the publisher by the first part of June, so it can be out the following, the following May or June, so July timeframe. So it takes about a year once you submit it and turn it in. So we turned in Dugout Devotions Volume 2 back in March, and that has a tentative launch of February of next year, and then so this one will be out around August of next year. So 2021. So those are done way in advance. I did the interviews last season.
Mm-hmm.
Write about them this season. So by the time I do the interviews and get it turned in, the book's out about 2 years later. So I have to make sure that I have to do some pretty good research on the people I interview and make sure they're not just fly-by-nights.
I was going to say that could be backslidden by the time.
Yeah, and so we have to really worry about that. I mean, it's I guess it could be funny, but it's.
I'm laughing, but no, it would not be funny.
No, we had an
it.
instance. We had an instance for Dugout Devotions too that we had to take a chapter out, a chapter that Michelle Medlock Adams had written. I had interviewed Ben Zobrist of the Cubs. Ben's got a great testimony, great player, and I interviewed Ben a couple of times when he was in Cincinnati with the Cubs, and took his testimony down and some stories of faith. And so Michelle wrote one because she's a Cubs fan, so I gave her the interview to write the chapters, and she did a great job on it. She wrote 2 chapters. One of them was included in Dugout Devotions 1. So we wanted to keep one back for Dugout Devotions 2.
Right.
Well, the one for Dugout Devotions 2 was how he talked about how his wife was his rock, how he looked to her. And then this past season, their marriage fell apart.
He's looking to somebody else now. Yeah.
No, it wasn't him at all. It was not him. But the whole story was about how much he looked to her for guidance, and so we had to nix that chapter.
Wow!
It wasn't nothing Ben did. Ben was a victim, but we still had to take it out because that wasn't the case anymore. So things will happen. I did for Dugout Devotions 2. I wrote a good chapter on Jose Altuve, who when I spoke to him, says great things, great reputation. Houston Astros involved in that scandal just a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
So, he was one of them that came out and apologized. So I'm thinking hopefully in a year that'll have died down.
Mm-hmm.
But it's already turned in. I don't think it'll people will forget things like that, but it's something we have to be careful for when we interview players. So I really research players, thoroughly and go way back in time, because it's kind of not a gamble, but it's you're hoping that they don't do something stupid.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Dale. I mean, that's the part. I mean, that's we're all fallen. We're walking on clay feet. And it's great, and we want to talk about the victorious life, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But folks, let it never be forgotten that we're all sinners. Mm-hmm. I was talking to somebody just the other day, and I just had to share. I feel very inadequate to do this because I'm a sinner. I don't know. I am not worthy of God's love. But anyway, he puts up with us. He isn't looking for perfect people, thank goodness. And but I was thrilled by the story. Now, let me ask you a question. I forget the guy's name now. But how do you target these individuals? I mean, how do you know who to go look for? How do they get on your radar to even consider as part of your book?
It's just not a lot of research. Some research, I'll go through the roster. Some players I may have heard of, they may be somebody I want to talk to. A lot of times I'll get it from other players. I'll say, hey, who else should I talk to? And they'll tell me. But in this case, I was in Cincinnati for the Steelers game, and I'm sure Becky Lindsay loved it because she's a big Steelers fan. So, I'm up in the media box and I have a lot of time. So I do a lot of research. I do some prior to the game, But I'll do silly things like I'll get on Twitter, and I will call up each player
Right.
and look at their profile.
Mm-hmm.
And if their profile has something good, then I'll Google, or I'll look up Sports Spectrum, or I'll look up Clubhouse Magazine, or CBN News, and see if they've done things on them too. And so that's how I do a lot of it. But I'd say half of it's done by word of mouth. When I will talk to players in the locker room, and I'll when I'm done, I'll say, hey, thank you. Who anybody else on the team I should talk to?
Right.
And they'll say sure, one or two. Or I also like to reach out to the team chaplain, and they're a good source. And they'll say, in fact, they've saved me a couple of times. They'll say, no, you don't want to talk to this guy right now. He's not doing good. So and I appreciate that. But some of the team chaplains are very helpful to steer me towards certain players. But I do a lot of research on my own, actually.
Now, in the chat room, JD's got a good question here. I wonder if FCA gives you any guidance. Now, I know that you're affiliated with a similar group.
Yeah, Athletes in Action and FCA. Occasionally, they're a great organization. I've met a lot of folks with FCA and Athletes in Action. They're kind of guarded a lot of times on.
I've noticed.
Yeah, they're very guarded on that, and I'll reach out to them and say, hey, I've got this and this and this, and I may not hear from them again.
Yeah.
They're a great organization. I've done work with them. I've done some things with them. I've done a lot of work with Athletes in Action, but they're I'm sure they could be helpful, but they're just hard to connect with.
Dell, I have sought after FCA, and found similar hurdles to cross, and at some point you realize God's not in it. Now the work they do and the ministry they do, outstanding, but they are not set up to deal with external media, because they might be as suspicious of us as you just don't know. Yeah, and once that genie gets out of the bottle, it's hard to put them back in.
Yeah, and I've had some good contacts there that we've leveraged, and we're working on some more. Actually, there's some opportunities that may develop down the road with them. So, no, I just can't pick up a phone and call them, because it's just a lot of moving wheels there. So, but a great organization. AIA is also great, but I'm basically I don't really rely on them as much because it's just tough to get a hold of them.
And now your blog today at DellDidway.com, let me put that up on the screen. Please tell us this incredible, amazing story of going from utter defeat to outstanding.
Yeah, Myka Fitzpatrick, he went to New Jersey. He raised there in Jersey, and then good family, big family. I think he was one of 4 siblings. Good, blue collar working parents. Not a lot of money, but did their best. Hurricane Irene comes along, wipes out literally. They don't have a home anymore. It's gone. And he was telling me that it was tough. Obviously, they had to move in with his mom's parents in their basement, which would be a struggle with 4 kids, all active kids. He's playing high school football, and they didn't have any money. I mean, they lost everything. They didn't have flood insurance, so their house was gone. No way to get it back. So they're, back at stage 1 in life. And so, he's going to this prep school, which isn't cheap, but it's his best alternative because he had a lot of talent and had to eat, as he called it, the peanut butter room, because he couldn't afford lunches. So lunches provided for him every day. So he offered to quit and go somewhere else that was more financially better for them, but they didn't allow that. His parents said, we'll be fine. All along, he said he questioned God. He never lost his faith, but he was frustrated because he said up to this point they've done everything right. They go to church, they pray, they do everything right, and then their home's gone. Right. And so they said it was tough, but their parents were very strong with their faith and just kept him going, and things work out. He ends up going to Alabama on a full ride scholarship. Obviously, Alabama's not anything to sneeze about.
It ain't New Jersey either.
Right, wins
That
two
that had
national
to be.
championships. Right, a big culture shock, but wins two national championships. Gets drafted by Miami. Goes a year in Miami, then goes to Pittsburgh and has a banner year in Pittsburgh. He's all pro. So he talked to me down in the locker room about it, very openly about it, and kind of gave it a little teaser. You have to read the rest of it in the book. But Myka was very polite, very mannerly, very gentlemanly, and didn't shy away from it. Was very talked openly about it. So he just said his faith got stronger, and he realizes now why they went through it, because he has this platform now to talk about it, to talk about God's grace, and talk about how he didn't give up when he could have. So, he's a very inspirational young man, got a great future ahead of him. And I liked his attitude. He was able to, he talked to me about yes, sir, no, sir, thank you, sir. He was very polite and mannerly, and I like to see more of that.
I need to see more of that, and it's particularly impressive when somebody of his means, because he's making a good paycheck, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times you get thinking that you are somebody, and you don't have to do those things. That that you're the man, and anybody else
Mm-hmm.
therefore isn't. No, folks, it's we're all just we're all in this together.
I don't see, some of the guys I talk to, I don't see that a lot. I do see it sometimes with these. I see it more with the NBA players. The more the bling and the little attitude.
Mm-hmm.
But I see it some in the NFL, and especially certain positions, and they're all good folks. They're all doing a good job. But a lot of your wide receivers are very arrogant because they have to be a little arrogant and cocky.
Mm-hmm.
Minka's a free safety. Could be
He's the
playing
guys
linebacker.
that instills humility into those wide receivers.
Yeah. So a lot of these guys I talk to, could be very arrogant and look down. But I tell you what, a lot of them I talk to when I research them are very humble, because a lot of them come from similar backgrounds, not losing their house, but a lot of them come up poor, or only one parent. So they're very grateful for their mom or their grandma. So oftentimes when I ask them who was a big influence, a lot of them will say, I didn't have any parents growing up, or my mom was on her own and worked 3 jobs. So a lot of them have been taught humility, but some of them haven't. But that's okay. But the ones I've been talking to and try to do a lot of research and get their history, a lot of them have that upbringing where they're humble and they're grateful. So that's always good to see.
Well, Dale, I've for the past 2 weeks been working very diligently on humility in my own life, and it's really paid off, because at this point I am more humble than 95% of the general population.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm proud of that.
You're proud of that. Yeah, I got it. So, it's refreshing. Yeah, I'm getting back, and I took a couple of months off of writing, so it's kind of refreshing to get back into it. And I got a couple of other projects I want to get into after I'm done with this project. So there's always something cooking. Right now in the publishing world, it's kind of slow right now. Mm-hmm. A lot of publishers are afraid to be offering contracts. So it is kind of it's kind of drying up out there. It'll eventually come back, but you'd think that they'd be looking at manuscripts, and they are, but they're not ready to offer contracts because they don't know what the future holds. Barnes and Noble is getting ready to downsize quite a bit. So the publishing world is kind of at a standstill right now, waiting to see what happens. I know that all the book expos, I got another email today, another conference I was going to canceled. So I'm down to 2 now. So then those are probably canceled. So it's kind of slow, but we're taking advantage of that time, and I'll have this book done by June, and I'll be ready to start another one.
In your blog, once you get through the story and the success, then at some point, most of us do not go through losing our home in a hurricane. But all of us go through adversity, and adversity is one of those moments in time where you're going to change. You're either going to get better, or most likely you're going to get bitter. One of those two. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be a hurricane. Folks, we're living through something right now that is impacting all of us. So you give some very practical advice from a biblical perspective, is how to think this through and how to work your way through it.
Yeah, I think the first thing you have to do is accept it. You don't have to like it, but you have to say, we're going through a pandemic right now. We're going through some tough times uh, as a nation and as a community and as a person. I know some folks who've lost their jobs. I know some folks who are going to lose their business. That's their equivalent of losing their house.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can't really compare your struggles to somebody else. Your struggles are your struggles and they're unique. So you have to accept it and say, yeah, this has happened. Now what do I have to do? What do I have to do? Now what? Don't deny it and say, well, this will never happen to me, or turn your back on it and act like it didn't happen, because it has. So you have to. That's when you have to. You have to really rely on God. Because when all else is gone, you have to trust. And I think Myka said it, nicely. He said, faith is a faith unless you're faithful in those bad times.
Right.
Unless you stick with it, because it's easy to quit. That's the easiest thing in the world to do is quit.
Mm-hmm.
So when times gets tough, you're going through it for a reason. I know people hate to hear that. I hate to say that. You're going through everything happens for a reason. Yeah. But it does. So I don't like that saying, but it typically turns out to be right, because Coach, Andy and I have talked about for months trying to start a business. We've been running into these roadblocks. And I'm thinking, why in the world can I get this business going? Why can't I find a place? Well, now I know. Had we started a business in January, it'd probably be bankrupt right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, So I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, maybe we, maybe it worked out. So, yeah, accept it, draw closer to God at that time. You really have to rely on your faith. Seek some advice from folks who've been through it, who've been through storms. Praise your way through it, and then get ready, because something good's going to happen. It may not be tomorrow. Myka had to go through 4 years of, struggles with his family. Then he gets the full ride to Alabama, and he gets signed by to go into the NFL. So those 4 years of struggle paid off.
I could share a lot of stories. Well, I'll just share one. There is a tendency. We are living in such abundance and such wealth and such opportunity, and many people find their way. They've got their home, they've got their family, they've got their job, they've got their cars, and we develop this false sense not only of security, but a very false sense of self-reliability. Okay, that we. And then a hurricane comes along and we find out that we are not in control of our destiny. That there is, we're not self-sufficient. And it is a very difficult moment. And people oftentimes are more receptive to a gospel message once they realize that they do need God. Because before they figured, what do I need God for? I got this made. Look what I've done.
Yeah.
And they think the sweat of their brow and the cunning of their mind did it, and they just don't know yet. They'll find out.
I mean, when all they have left is that, then they rely on it. I mean, I've heard a lot. Some people will question, if God can heal, and a lot of people will kind of smirk at it. But you'll believe in healing once you get sick enough. Mm-hmm. Once you're facing that diagnosis, then you might think, what, maybe he can heal me. Mm-hmm. So, you're not faced with it. You don't really rely on it until you're faced with it. So I think people are now a lot of folks are faced with that. And I did a post yesterday. In fact, it was published today in the Ohio State House News, where people are mocking religion right now. I mean, the New York Times it didn't blame the Chinese for this coronavirus outbreak. It didn't blame Republicans, Democrats, or independents. You know who they blamed? People of faith. The New York Times, Catherine Stewart blamed Christians, blamed people of faith for the slow response. So that just proves, for somebody who's with the New York Times doesn't have an intelligent argument to make. Mm-hmm. What do? You blame somebody else and you call them names. That is straight out of the left playbook, the left liberal Democrat playbook. I can't make an intelligent argument, so I'm going to call them names and I'm going to blame somebody else.
I hate to see it, but I'm glad you pointed it out. And well, Dale, listen, we're going to do this again next week, and we're running actually a little bit over time. But Dale, welcome back to the gridiron. Welcome back to the sports arena, that gladiatorial stadium where life plays out in front of us, and you have a way of illustrating it in a way that God is revealed. Dale, you are the man. I appreciate you so much. Can't wait to hear from you next week, brother.
We'll see you next week, and thanks to everybody for jumping on and tuning in. Sorry we kept you long. I always talk a lot.
Oh, they're riveted to it. Don't worry, folks. That was Dale Didway. He appears every Tuesday night at this time. Let me take a moment to let you know tomorrow night we have two special guests. At 9 o'clock Eastern, we will have, for the first time ever on pjnet.tv, Star Airs. And she has an incredible story to tell. I can't wait to hear it. I'm actually in that story. I know the story already. Folks, it is going to be wonderful. And just be in prayer as Star. She's already done her promo video that will be launched tomorrow. She did it yesterday, I believe. And she put out a video the other day about a broken pot. Oh, great. It's just great stuff. You're gonna hear all about it tomorrow, but go check out what she's already got out there on social media, and you will be inspired, and you will look forward to that. And then, of course, as always, Michelle Medlock Adams will be with us tomorrow night at 9:30. And she is an octopus on roller skates. She, I don't know what she's going to talk about, but I can promise you this: she's going to talk. Okay, she will. And folks, we're going to leave you now. I've got to produce the highlights videos. It is a joy to do that. It is a joy to look in the chat room and see so many people having such a sweet fellowship and being part of the program. You are the lifeblood of the pjnet.tv ministry. I appreciate you. I really do. Folks, I'm going to leave you with two questions. And they're very serious. And you don't have to answer me, but I hope that you will answer yourself very honestly. The first question is, what is the boldest thing you have ever done for Jesus Christ? And I hope you don't have too much trouble answering that question. But even if it comes to mind instantly, the next question I think is very important. And that is, how long ago was that? You see, folks, I think the challenge in our Christian walk, for myself and hopefully all of us, is to never be satisfied with either answer.